Okay, I think Frank had a subject he wanted me to discuss. Frank, was there a subject you wanted me to cover before I begin? Did we talk over something?
I was going to mention Pangaya.
Unless you want to get into cheese at all, what you feel about cheese with root canals and all, it's a big subject though.
That's what you wanted me to go?
Oh, I love that, yeah.
Did you talk about that one time?
Yeah, it's just a matter of a little question and answer.
Just about like root canals, and once you've had one, once you've had a root canal, then it starts going bad, then what's the good thing to do?
I'll just go over it in general.
I have a question.
Oh, that's sweet. Okay, don't ask questions yet. All right. Jim, you want to come up and say something?
Yeah, I don't know how many of you guys know Lori Jacob, but we were just in Hawaii, my wife and I, the last couple of weeks of May, and there's this place, Pangaya, P-A-N-G-A-I-A. You can look it up in the internet. It's basically a farm. Started out, one guy 20 years ago got 3 acres, and then people who own the adjacent acreage and weren't doing anything with it just basically donated or leased it, so that these guys have Lori is on the raw food side from Aajonus, but there's vegetarians there. There's various people that eat raw foods, and it is fantastic. They milk the cow. They get a gallon and a half from the cow every morning, every night. They milk the goats. They get the mangoes from the trees. And particularly the vegetarians are in there smacking these macadamia nuts. Like mad, and it all just grows and thrives. It's a beautiful place in the jungle in the south of the island of Hawaii. So I just want to refer you guys to their website, and they took such good care of it. It cost, we paid for 2 people $120 a night. They gave us our own private jungle, kind of they call it a cube, because of the shape. Cottage, yeah. And, it's got bug screen around it, so you're not swamped with the bugs, but, you go out and look at the island of Hawaii has got really clear air. And you can see the stars all over the place at night, and it's just so peaceful. It's just an absolutely great place. And for the price, you not only get fed, but you get a tour guide for the whole day, any place you want to go. And tell me, the locals are the ones that know where the great places are. So the whole thing, I just want you to know about it in case you want to do it.
Is that in Kona?
No, that's on Hawaii.
Kona's on the other side. It's below Hilo, near Pahoa.
Right.
On the south side of the big island. If you go there, they do provide you for the final diet. The butter, the cream, the meat, everything. The juice.
Cheese.
They do it all for you. Oh, really nice. Yeah.
For 2 people, for one person, it's $60 a night.
I told them to raise the prices.
Oh, no.
What's the
You can pay more, they won't complain.
What's that again?
Pangaya.
It's www.megaya.cc.
Okay.
They do have a phone, I don't have a waiting guy yet. It's on the website.
Their telephone number is 805 965 9988. 9988.
Yeah.
Yeah, and only speak to Meniz about it or Lori. 805. Oh, 808. I'm sorry, 808. It's 808. 808. It's Hawaii. Just call it. It's 808. Area code 808 965 9988. Thank you for that. Called San Francisco.
Santa Barbara.
Santa Barbara. Yeah, that's true. Santa Barbara.
All year round, is that people?
You have to call them and see, because they have a flux of people coming from all over the world, all kinds of raw diets, but you have to be a raw fooder to eat there, to be there. Most of them are instinctos, which means they eat what appeals to their senses. So They eat a lot of fruit, and there are a lot of basket cases there, a lot of emotionally intense people. But Lori takes care of them. She's mellow. She's on and so is Denise. They're both pretty strictly on the primal diet. So they're the ones that head the whole thing through that. Yeah. And she's the one that will take you everywhere. That's right. It's a good time. Lori. You met Lori?
Yeah, Lori, right.
My ex?
Right.
Is that where she stays? Yeah. Well, she stays at a community just down the street right now. She had committed to a year with Tangaya and then with this other community. And at the other community, it's smaller, but they're all on the diet, primal diet. Okay, the subject of teeth. Something I haven't really gone into in the book, and it disturbs a lot of people because it's a painful area. It's a delicate area. I think I mentioned that after chemo and radiation and surgery, my teeth just dangled. All the bone deteriorated around my teeth. So they were all loose and very painful, and if I bit down, I'd lose a half a cup of blood each time I bit down. So I had to drink everything to a straw. Of course, I was a vegetarian and fruitarian, so that was easy to do at the time. But of course, that sugar, all that high sugar, kept the bone from growing. And it wasn't until I started eating dairy products and meat that my teeth solidified again to where I didn't lose them. But they wanted to pull all of them when I was 22 years old, 21 years old. And I said, if I'm going to my grave, I'm going to the grave with my teeth. So he says, well, what does it matter if you're in your grave? I said, I'm vain. I'm already ugly. So I refuse to do it. And it's been a lot of healing with my teeth because they pretty much rotted. They were rotted by about 50% by the time I was 28 years old on an all-fruit diet. And then at 29 and a half, I began eating meat, and then it changed. My teeth started solidifying, bones started growing quickly, everything started to mend. It took, about 13 years to stabilize. I had no pain, even if I had several teeth that I refused to get filled because I want to see what it would be like naturally to experience it. I don't suggest other people do that because you will lose teeth doing that. I suggest if you have fillings, holes in your teeth, you have them filled with inlays, porcelain inlays. Plastic is highly toxic, and the gums will recede. If you put facials or any kind of plastic in the tooth, the gum will rot and recede away from it, so then you have an open area for cavitation. If you use an inlay, there isn't that kind of a gross gassing of BPA. And I understand why now it does that, because they just came out with a report 2 months ago that showed that BPA, bisphenol acid, it causes 82% of the animals in the laboratory experiments to have developed brain cancers. 82% of them. So the FDA is talking about outlawing BPA being used to solidify plastics. But we're already in it. And it's part of if you have synthetic rugs, if you have synthetic clothes, it's in all of it. So you breathe it. If you have fibers, lint from your clothes, and they're synthetic, you breathe them. That melts in your lungs because your lungs have to dissolve it. And then what happens? You release dioxins, PVA, and a number of other toxins. In the plastic fillings, which are called composites, you have that BPA in a very high amount because they want to make those so hard and strong. And what happens is, if you have ever had a facial put on, which means a cavity at the gum line on the face of the tooth, your gum will recede from it quickly. It'll just cause recessive gum. So composites are not a good thing. Porcelain, some called enamel fillings, are the best thing. It's much more expensive. So if you have the time and you can do it, you can go down to Mexico and have it done for a third the price.
What was that?
Porcelain, yeah.
I could let my go.
Pardon? Gold. Some people recommend gold, but then there's a tendency that it helps conduct radio frequencies. So there are some people, who will have radio signals in their sleep and hear them, and it will disturb their sleep. So, and some people it just, does it on a normal basis, depending on how perceptive, their ears are to the radar. So there's also a doctor who calculated the amount of radiation that it attracts, even gold. So metals attract the radiation and radio waves. Radio waves are irradiation, just a lower level than light level radiation. So he doesn't recommend, and most people don't recommend metal for that reason. So your porcelain is most like the tooth, and it will cause less toxicity. You're always going to have some toxicity because they have to have a epoxy to adhere to the tooth. If you have an inlay, they make it a little bit fatter than the tooth so it snaps in. So you have to use a very minor amount of epoxy. Now, I met with this one dentist who is very naturally oriented. He believes that people should just leave their cavitations open like I do. But he hasn't seen what I've seen. He thinks that just adding mineral supplements and that, a good diet will reverse all that conditions. And it's theoretical, and I've seen that it isn't true. It doesn't happen that way.
That's in plastic food bags too?
Yes. So if you have anything in plastic food bags, take it out and put it in glass. Anyway, so it'd be better if you didn't interrupt me until another time. Leaving the tooth available to the oxygen itself is going to oxidize the tubules. Tubules are like veins that come to the skin in the tooth, and they feed like the lymph and the calcium and all the nutrients out to the dentine, keep the dentine layer safe. When you have a cavitation and that oxygen is getting in there, it's like soft bone marrow, and it will decay. Not decay, it will oxidize. I've been back to dentists in the last 15 years several times. I have absolutely no decay in my mouth, but I have all these rotten-looking teeth, but that's oxidization. So I'm not breeding bacteria to degenerate my teeth, but naturally from oxidization it happens. So I don't recommend people do that. I'm just experimenting with myself to see what will happen. There's several records of people, in later in life growing a third set of teeth. So I just got one from a man who was, it was a medical report from Vietnam. A 90-year-old man grew a third set of teeth. He had been toothless since he was 60, so he liked this. He finally started eating all those things he couldn't eat again. So I don't want to contaminate it, with any epoxies or anything, because I have such severe damage in my teeth that when the fillings pop out, I just leave them exposed. So I may go with dentures for a while and just hopefully the teeth will grow eventually. But on this diet, there are several things that will not happen to people on this diet that happen to people that are not on the diet. And that is when you have a root canal, if you've already had one done, there is a space at the base of the tooth which is very, very fine and small. Now, because the nerve there is the most sensitive, they don't drill down to that little pocket. And it's difficult for them to get down there and drill in anyway when you're going down into a deep tooth to do that. So they'll grind out the nerve, deteriorate the nerve all the way down to that little bitty, probably 1 centimeter of tissue that's in that little pocket. Now, normally in a person who doesn't get fed well, what will happen is that'll abscess. And then the body will start pouring the pus out to get rid of those dead cells that are decaying there. On this diet, you have enough nutrients, you don't have to worry about that. What the dentists love to do is charge you about $2,000 and go in there and cut the gum open, scrape that off, and then reseal it. The amount of repair that you have to do is going to far exceed the process of your body using bacteria to get rid of that little bit of decaying flesh and that little bitty pocket, a little bitty space. So if you're on the diet, let's say 85, 95%, you don't have to worry about it. And I'd say even if you're doing it less, you don't have to worry about it. You just have to deal with an abscess that's going to come out your gum and secrete and it'll stink and smell awful and it'll be pussy. But it's much easier than going, and a lot less expensive, and a lot less damage to your overall constitution than having surgery. If people are very, very ill and very old, surgery can be a relief because they don't get enough nutrients to detox the area and to keep up with that kind of infectious byproduct. Now, the infection is not a bad thing. Bacteria goes in there and eats the decaying tissue, and then it has waste products. But what bacteria does is when it eats this degenerative tissue, just like we'll take 7 pounds of food a day or better, or more, and we'll reduce it into one nice little elongated fecal matter. And that's what bacteria do. They reduce all this contamination to a small substance that's easier to deal with. That's why I encourage people to eat chicken liver. If they have cancer or eat high bacterial meat, to get in there and eat up tumors or whatever is degenerative in your body. That's the thing to do, is to infect yourself with bacteria. So we'll go there and do it. Now, virus is not a live thing. It's a conglomeration, a structure of proteins that's not alive. And the medical profession says that viruses are contagious. That's like 100 years ago, everybody used to make soaps in their homes with coconut oil and alcohol, or coconut oil and vinegar. That was soap. Soap was made that way. That would be like saying soap is contagious because it appears in every home. Everybody makes solvents. Everybody's body makes solvents to dissolve compounds. But when your body uses the solvent process, it takes a lot of dilution. So instead of reducing the toxic material involved, it expands it. Like we're washing something. We keep diluting it with water and washing it away, and then you have this bucket of garbage. It's a lot different. When bacteria and parasites eat something, they always reduce the contamination. Parasites work, they can take 3 times their weight and reduce it into a 100th of what it was. That's why I love parasites, because their byproducts are so minimal, easier to handle. You just have to eat a lot of meat so that you don't ulcerate. Keep dividing cells so that you can patch the degenerative areas where the parasites eat. Basically, that's it. So, you don't have to be afraid of your teeth. Like I said, if you don't want them to rot in your face, then put porcelain fillings on them. Porcelain fillings last longer. They don't crack as easily. They may last 20 years as a composite, which is plastic, is very toxic. Can cause recession of gums and of the nerve. Internal nerve can last a year, 2 years, 3 years at the most, and is cracking and splitting and turning black. Now these two right here, these are plastic faces on here. You can see them turning black. So I've got an option. I broke it out and resurface it, or do I go around with, have it taken off and then have these black teeth remaining? That's an option that I'm considering right now. So I may just have, a porcelain face put on it, take the plastic off, because it's causing my gums to completely pocket right here and bleed a lot. Plastic again now is pretty bad.
You say the wisdom teeth can grow back and stay there because it's pulled out.
I don't know. I've only witnessed a few people growing teeth in their later life, and I only witnessed a couple of young people in their 20s who had open, huge cavities, and from drinking the milk and eating the raw food products and the meats, their dentine grew back, cavities went back.
I'm talking about the wisdom teeth, they pull it out.
I don't know. There's some belief that there is a seed at the base of the tooth, and when they extract and pull it out, they pull the seed with it. So if you've had your wisdom teeth or any teeth pulled, there's a possibility you won't grow the tooth back. And the only people that I know that have grown teeth back in advanced ages, all let their teeth rot out naturally. But I don't know. That's only information. Yes? That's going to happen. Your body discharges poison in every way it can. Through the skin, mostly. So that's the biggest bowel is the skin. So you're all full of shit. Then at the bowel is the next major area. The tear ducts, the earwax, the gums, the tongue, the salivary glands, your nails, and mostly builds toxic metals into the hair and nails, from the bones, the vaginal area, anywhere there's mucus, the penis, the urinary tract, wherever the body can discharge poisons, it will. And because we are so toxic, everything, every part of us is an asshole. Basically. It isn't vernacular. Face exactly what we are. So, then you don't have to worry about it. If somebody calls you an asshole, you say, I know it, thank you. I'm glad I am. Got to get poisons out somewhere. Pardon? Well, gas is usually what happens is you have poisons that are in the intestinal walls or stomach walls or esophageal walls, and it dumps in and mixes with the gastrointestinal juices, and that causes gas. But most of that is reduced on this diet. As soon as people go on the diet, for 95% of the people, 90% of the gas leaves them that they're normally used to having on a cooked diet. And then some people get a little bit more for a while, maybe 3 to 5 months, and then that dissipates down to about 95% of what they're normally used to passing. And that means you have 95% better friends. Yes, Carter?
Why did you use the question
Because I wanted to let them see I wanted to see what would happen on this diet if you just let the teeth go. I'm still doing that. Like I have a tooth here, which is almost completely rotten down, and the nerve's right there. I mean, I can poke it and it'll bleed, but I have no pain. And I used to have severe pain. I mean, pain so bad like it would last 30, 60 days, and I'd have to take magic mushrooms and a marijuana mixture as my painkiller to get rid of it, and not do nothing but eat and sleep all day. That's all I could do because pain was so excruciating. But and that's when I began eating. That was, shortly after the poison mushroom when I destroyed my body so much. And it was in December of '82 when I had that severe toothache that I began eating meat every day, and that made a big shift in my pain level. All of a sudden, when I started doing that, within 30, 40 days, I barely experienced any tooth pain anymore. And now I experience none, even though the nerves are right there. I mean, I can puncture them and they'll bleed. But yet I'm eating and I get no pain. The food's going down there and hitting it all the time. Maybe once in a while, if they want to make a nut for them, when a little chunk is there and it gets back there, I'll say, oops. But it isn't severe and the pain doesn't last more than a second. 2 seconds. Yes?
So you're not going to
No, I get it cleaned every 10 years. Can't you tell? Yeah, well, most of this is most of the bases are plastic on my teeth. So you can't, that does not bleach. It does not make a difference. Yes. It's probably detrimental because when I followed 4 people for a 10-year period, they had, every animal in nature has receding gums. So the pocket gets larger the older they are. But it works in increments, it's not a bad thing. Until you're, way down below, like maybe a 32 below the youth level, the child level. And there's no harm in that. Dentists make a fortune on getting people, to come in and get cleanings and then to take medication for that. And that's a natural thing, and there's been no disease associated with it. Disease associated with eating lots of sugars that rot the teeth from the inside, not the outside. They love to blame, bacteria on the outside, but there's no test that proves that. Because where does the bacteria come from? Mainly it comes from the inside, goes out the tubules, keeps being discharged out in the dentine, and that weakens the dentine, then the cavity starts. I'm sure an outer bacteria or plaquing can irritate it and cause it to be progressive.
You're saying the real cleaning takes place
In your diet, of course.
so the outside cleaning is
Well, if you have severe plaque that has a lot of acid in it, I had a vagotomy, which means I had an operation which severed all the nerves to my stomach so I wouldn't lose hydrochloric acid. What that did for me was all the acid backs up into my mouth. That's when my teeth started rotting heavily because all my hydrochloric acid was going into my mouth instead of my stomach, so my teeth were just rotting away quickly. It still happens. And still my teeth are okay compared to it. I still have my teeth. These are all my teeth. I don't have any implants. And I was supposed to lose them 35 years ago. That to me is a good thing. I mean that my teeth aren't perfect, but I can use them. I can chew on the stuff, with my teeth. It's enjoyable.
You have your wisdom teeth?
No, they were taken out when I was a kid. Also, the orthodontist, the braces on me, took out 4 bicuspids, shrunk my mouth up, and my tongue was so big that I couldn't speak. I lisped all the time because my tongue didn't fit in my mouth. This is the stupidity of some people out there. Oh, I'm going to rearrange his mouth. Well, what size is the tongue? Think about that. So I had to take a scissors and keep cutting this membrane right here so that my tongue would go back farther so I could speak properly. And, that was pretty rough. And I haven't had to do it for about 15 years because it's not growing back anymore. But it would grow back and I had to cut it again. Hair shears. Hair shears are sharp. Clip. Painful for a few seconds.
Yeah.
They were turned red from that.
I pierced my ears with self-piercing
Oh, yeah?
earrings. I don't know. When they get infected, it was so painful. Oh, my God.
But that didn't infect, I was taking care of myself. Good diet. So there's, I have 9 teeth that should be in there that don't exist. 4 because of the orthodontist, 4 because of the wisdom teeth that the dentist took out, and 1 that just rotted out in that experience in 1982, in November and December of 1982. I lost that tooth. It rotted out of my head. I mean, it just pussed so badly it just came out, after 30 days, 35 days. It was a miserable time for me. But it got me to eat the meat on a daily basis for the first time, and that changed my life for the second time. The first was eating meat to begin with, and the second was eating meat on a daily basis, and I'm still afraid to do that. And please, all of you, get rid of the bacteria and the parasite phobia. I spent 13 years eating raw meat on a daily basis and being afraid of getting parasites and bacteria and infections. It was such an absurdity. I'm in that category of octogenarian who doesn't produce any hydrochloric acid. And they said, when I was 20 years old when they did that, they said, you will never be able to eat raw foods again. It will kill you if you get a bacterial parasitical infection. I've eaten parasite-infested meat, that undulated with the pinworms and calf's brain that was full of parasites and chicken tripe that was full of parasites. and never got one. I had my PCs and blood checked for 10 weeks after, and I never got one parasite. So it's all supposition. You know, the doctors and scientists think, oh, this is how it probably is, and therefore it is. And it's written in stone. It's got nothing to do with reality. So no need to scare, be afraid and go through life terrified that you eat raw meat. It's pretty absurd. Yes?
You're talking parasites, talking about little worms. What about the one-cell protozoa, which is different from the worm?
It just feeds on a smaller cell. It feeds on, let's say you have a cell that is discharged. Take your own bodies. We lose skin cells every day. Before there were showers and baths, guess what you did? You had salmonella bodies, billions of them on your arms and body that would eat these dead human cells. Eat them. That's what salmonella was there to do. Eat the dead cells so you didn't cake up and dry out. They were helping you. It's a symbiotic relationship. You have these small protozoa-type parasites that live on waste products of very, very small molecules of animal flesh that have degenerated. So they're all good. Well, it's because you had too much rot in your system and you weren't on a good diet. So you weren't cleansing properly and you weren't healing properly.
So, Aajonus, when you were experimenting eating like that tripe that had parasites and stuff, how many years had you been eating the raw meat?
Well, the chicken tripe came pretty rapidly. This was 1979 when I ate that. And I started eating the raw meat in September of 76 when I ate the rabbit. And I was only eating meat maybe twice a week, average twice a week. But I had just gone off of a long fast and I was starving. And I broke the 42-day fast. I don't recommend anybody to be fasting. It took me 3 years to recover fast. If you're eating meat, it may not take as long. So I had to break the fast in the middle of the night and there were no stores open. So I went into the garbage bin of a fish store. And there was a huge fillet of salmon with pinworms in it. And I said, well, I'm very hungry, and I'm going to make these pinworms part of my nourishment. So I did, and I ate it. And I just knew there was going to be no problem. So, then after I did it, the next morning, I was panicked. So I started, I had my blood taken, once a week for 10 weeks. And had the pieces checked. Never had one of the parasites. I mean, this piece of salmon was undulating with these white. I thought, these guys are so hardy and vibrant. They're going to give me some strength after this long fast. Because all along the fast, all I did was drink urine and water.
You were just experimenting.
Yes. Well, the urine is nothing other than the red blood, is the same serum as the blood without the red blood cells. And a little ammonia that is manufactured in the kidneys. So basically it's the same thing as blood. Very nourishing. There are tribes that don't have much meat, so they recycle their urine every day because they can recycle the proteins and other nutrients in it that they would just slough off and by urinating. So I learned that, in the mid-70s when I was traveling around on a bicycle. But I never had the nerve to try until about 1977 when I stopped bicycling. And I found that it did help me because I was, I didn't even eat that often. And it did recycle my protein. And I've done fasts before. I've done as long as a 32-day fast out on the Colorado River. And I got down to 92 pounds. And, I believe that bullshit that was in Zaleki's book, the Essene Gospel of Peace, where Jesus is supposed to have said, if you fast for every day that you live, 1 day for every year that you live, you will completely decontaminate your body, which is absolutely horseshit. But I had to find that out the hard way. You know, you don't remove any toxins from the body unless you have fat in the body and other nutrients to dissolve it and get it out of the system. Otherwise, it just recirculates. And then on a fast, your body eats itself. And if you're toxic, you're just eating toxic food. And you're not going to get any stronger. So maybe you get rid of, a couple of, a trillion unhealthy cells within you as weak as hell, and those cells that are remaining are very weak because you're not feeding them properly. Yes?
I was wondering if you could say,
Right?
yeah, say what default how you would.
Well, when I get to asking questions around the room, you'll that will be your question, okay? This is just on the subject that we were talking about.
What about brushing the teeth?
Brushing the teeth, I think, is a good thing because the plaque, you have toxic minerals that secrete through the gums. That's why you have that plaque on there. Those are minerals that have been cooked. And when you take clay, it's the same way. Once you fire clay, what happens to it? It's a hard, sharp substance. When that comes out the gums, it causes plaque on the teeth. You need to get rid of that because it will choke off the dentine, and that can cause more abscess or cause the discharge from the nerves and the pustules leaving the teeth. It could damage the plaque on the teeth. I mean, the dentine of the teeth. I brush whenever I feel the plaque solid.
Is once a day enough?
Once a day is fine.
What do you brush with?
I brush with an adult soft toothbrush that's all door bristles. Because if I accidentally get one of those plastic things in my stomach, guess what I'm putting in my body? Dioxins, PDA, plastic. I'm eating plastic.
Do you use a type of toothpaste or baking soda?
I have that in the recipe book. Okay, so I'm not going to go over that. Okay? Yes?
If your mouth is full of gold fillings and a few the other kind, what's that, the mercury kind? What would you recommend?
I recommend you getting rid of the maladies. As long as you have trouble sleeping in radio frequencies, leave the gold in. But the mercury, what it does is it gases. And the mercury vapors crystallize. And they absorb into the body and damage cells. And they can damage about 1,000 healthy cells. One crystal, one molecule crystal of the mercury will destroy 1,000 surrounding cells. A big bomb. So it's a good idea to get rid of it. I mean, 1,000 cells is no big deal. You can fit a couple million cells on the end of a pinhead. But still, collectively it can get over many years. It can be a
Go
problem.
to a dentist who knows how to do it
Yes,
properly.
it puts a dam in there to make sure you don't breathe it and inhale it.
What do you recommend?
Yes.
Now, the follow-up question is tinnitus a possible cause of having gold fillings?
Yes, if the mercury is going back and embedding in the
Gold.
gold, no.
I got the big.
No. Tinnitus is from swelling in the ear canal. You've got some kind of toxicity in the eardrum, and the increased circulation to cleanse the area causes the swelling. It's like, anytime you have swelling in the ear, if you've ever had a sore throat, earache, everything rings because of the swelling, the extra fluid in there. Yes, pardon me.
You said we have to get
Their mercury out?
mercury out?
No. I say if somebody has cancer, you wait till you get through with the cancer first. Lori had about 30 tumors, 20 to 30 tumors in her right breast. Her right breast was third larger than the left. Hard as rock. She had cancer in the right hip bone and on the right kidney attached to the adrenal gland. She had a mouthful of amalgams. And I suggested that she wait till she stabilized. And it took her 2 years to get rid of all the cancer in the breast. She couldn't get rid of the ones in the hip or the kidney and the adrenal gland. So I suggested after 3.5 years on the diet, to eat some fecal matter. Because the University of of Toronto was using the barotoxin, the byproduct of E. coli, to completely dissolve human brain tumors in 2 to 7 days, including the vessels going to it. They've been doing that now. They've been doing it for 29 years. Why isn't that out available? Why isn't that information out?
Using bacteria?
Yeah, right. And now 18 universities are using it in Canada and the United States. They're using the measles bacteria. They're using cold, flu, salmonella. They did the salmonella stuff at Yale. And last year, Bion Products put out a product called, I can't remember the product. Anyway, it's an attenuated salmonella that goes in and chokes off the oxygen to the tumor, but does not eat it as it naturally does. So they'll charge you $8,000 for a shot of salmonella when you can just let some chicken rot or, some eggs rot and eat it. And then they charge you $12,000 to inject a solvent to dissolve the tumor. So $20,000 for one therapy, then you can just go eat shit and live. Basically, is what it is. So she said, well, where do I get the fecal matter? I said, well, it has to be a good, clean animal. It has to be a healthy, organic animal. And she said, where am I going to get one? I said, well, we've got gophers all over the yard. You want me to shoot a couple? And she said, yeah. So I took my crossbow and shot a couple of gophers, and she ate greasy, grindy gopher guts. And within 2.5 months, the tumor that was connected to the kidney dissolved by 1/3. And the one in the hip bone decreased by 1/3. So she eats fecal matter on a regular basis out there in Hawaii. She'll take, part of when they slaughter a goat or a sheep, she'll cut the bowel out. And she has everybody eating shit, basically. And all animals eat shit except for civilized humans. There are tribes that don't get enough protein, so they'll eat the fecal matter that's already dumped in the field. They'll just sit there and eat it like it's nothing. It tastes just like overcooked vegetables. And what they did to do is because the cow has predigested, there's a lot of protein that we can get from it. So that's why all animals eat fecal matter if they can't get enough meat. And the bacteria will keep them from cancer. So, and I've had probably 10 people do it. I had one girl with advanced cancer in San Francisco that I've been talking to her, about eating fecal matter, and she wouldn't do it. And when I was in Nevada City in April, and we shot a wild turkey, and I put all the bowel and its content in a jar because I was going to do a seminar and workshop in San Francisco following that one, immediately following that one where she lived. So her boyfriend and I sat around one evening like two little boys who would, bad little boys who would get the little girl neighbor to eat shit, praying. So we finally got her to eat this shit, and I got this email from her 2 weeks later, and she said, I cannot tell you the difference in feeling that I went from the next day, even though that I was in fear. I felt so much better, and I've felt that way since. And she's getting ready to eat her second helping turkey shit with the bowels. Actually eat the bowels with. Because if a person has cancer and their E. coli isn't flourishing in their intestines, they're in trouble. Allow for metastasis. So if you eat the bowel along with the fecal matter, it will help you restore your own environment to help your own E. coli grow and produce. So the medical profession makes a fortune on bacteria phobia. And let me tell you, we've been working with bacteria for millions of years. Millions of years. Nobody washed their hands before they ate. They wiped their butts and everything. It's so absurd to think that we're all of a sudden all of a sudden that is going to make the difference between life and death. It's absurd. It's insane. And the people who are not on this diet, the average people out there are having 18 to 20% diarrhea or vomit every day. On this diet, the rate is only 12%. Figure that one out. We have a lot more bacteria on this diet. So it isn't the bacteria that's causing the problem. It's the poisons. How many people have seen somebody eat something poisonous and end up with diarrhea and vomiting? MSG in your food, pesticides, herbicides in your food. You eat them, that's what's causing the problem. Poisons, pollution, chemicals. Boy, the medical profession and the food industry are in love together. And they produce this bacteria fear.
Is it advisable to eat shit if you don't have like a serious illness or cancer? Just
If at our age, sure. If you've not been a raw fooder all of your life, your likelihood of collecting a lot of cells, dead cells in your body and not reproducing them, we're according to the greatest authority on oncology, cancer. And at a conference in 2000, he said, everybody stand up. He said, I want you to pick men, I want you to look at the man next to you. One of the two of you will have cancer in your lifetime. And the women, 3 of you look at each other. 1 of 3 of you women will have cancer in your lifetime. That's how bad it is. So, eat your liver. I've really been thinking about, writing a comedy routine and calling it Eat Shit and Live. Because that's the only way you're going to open minds to that concept before they come in the room. I thought about doing it with my next book on detoxification, but my publisher won't let me. I mean, it would be a catchy thing. Who would buy that?
Yeah.
Eat Shit and Live.
Did I hear you say something about brain cells, brain tumors also with that bacteria thing? Is that just cancer?
No, that was the test that they've been doing at the University of Toronto for 29 years now. 2 to 7 days, including the vessels going to them, to solve it.
So high meat is not considered to have high meat inflation.
High meat. Well, I haven't. Lori ate a lot of high meat, and it didn't move those tumors. The breast tumor it did, but the kidney, the adrenal, and the hip bone, it didn't move. The fecal matter did quicker. High meat is the rest of the okay. In that it means you just let meat oxidize to the point where it gets lots of bacteria in it. It stinks like it can be.
What university in the United States was supposed to do in the mountains?
I have one in my book, and it's in the recipe book. Yes.
Yeah, I remember when I was 5 years old, I was a kid, and he didn't know what we were doing.
What?
Yeah, he was going crazy.
What did
got
you do?
some kid eat you?
Yeah, I got yelled at and everything. It was like a dog tooth.
You were a natural shaman doctor. You didn't know it.
Can I go back to that dentistry thing?
Yes.
I'm clear. The personal question for me is a tooth that has a root canal. And it's been there, I guess, 5 years, and it finally started acting up. And I'm still not sure now.
I say let it go. If you're on a good diet like this one, let it
The
go.
poisons that are in there already.
The poisons will leak out through the gum, around the tooth, and come make usually an abscess at the gum level, start pussing out. Go a couple times a day, wipe it forward, and take it out. Don't swallow it. Foul smelling stuff. And then it goes away. I've kept 5 of my teeth by doing it. I have 7 root canals.
How old were you when you had your teeth?
Oh, I was in my 20s. Yes.
So basically, it's harder to get
Correct. Old, toxic, crystallized, cauterized minerals from eating cooked food, like fire and flame. Toxic, sharp, can't be utilized properly in the body. I only get tartar on the back teeth now. It took me 20 years to get to that point. I just ate 2, but good. Take that butter, do the clay, go on in a second.
clay.
Sometimes if it's really hard and you can't break it easily, use olive oil with some butter, or olive oil and cream. And a little clay will take it right off. It'll break it down. And it will work after you finish. If it's any of the fat is left in there with the clay, it will work down and start melting it away, dissolving. Yes. When you get cleanings, what happens, they take the knife way down there and they keep cutting the gum away. How much recession do you think is caused by the cleaning? Most of it. When I stopped having cleanings done, my recession stopped. I stopped having cleanings in late 80s, and then I only had one in 79. I had all my amalgams taken out. 78 when I had all my amalgams taken out. And I had mostly composites put back in, 7 root canals and crown. And then I had another cleaning in the mid-80s, and I go to a dentist every once in a while just to have them check, the pocket depth. And it hasn't gone any lower than 1 in 10 years. Well, you just brush with the right food. Brush with the right foods.
What about flossing? What good idea now?
Flossing is okay. Definitely, because plaque is down there where the brush can't get easily. It helps break it away. Yes?
You had something on in your email, because I had been using your clay and butter mixed together. You had something about the dentine clay not to use it.
How do you eat it?
Not
Yeah.
to eat it, but you could still use it for your teeth like an Indian clay.
I don't
actual
suggest
clay.
it because it does have radioactive minerals in it because it's from molten lava. You could use the coral calcium to brush your teeth with, the French green clay. Just on the internet and just put it on there, you'll find it. Yes.
I have done 2 or 3 times, and every time I get a lot of amalgam. But when they clean it, the amalgam also goes out, and you cannot all time ask to go out, and you are obliged to eat. So what will happen?
Well, you'll be eating mercury. It will contaminate your intestines. It will probably contaminate your prostate, your rectum, and sigmoid colon, where you probably get a lot.
And to clean it up, right?
Like I said in the book, the recipe book, cilantro is very helpful to get rid of the mercury out of the system. Make that part of your juice. Now, I started to say earlier, when I had one of these caps come off, I had 2 caps here left. 2 came off, and I just left them on. So it's 2 right here. One of them came off. Now, they've been on since 1978. They've been on a long time. One of them popped out 10 years ago. I said, well, I'm not going to go have epoxy put on there. So I took beeswax that I was chewing. I took a spoon and made it into a very thin wafer. I mean, paper thin. Then I pressed it inside the tooth and put it on and just bit. It's been on for almost 11 years. And when I went to a dentist about 5 years ago to ask him, I forgot which one it was, so I said, would you do me a favor, go in there and try to pull? I just want to see what the tooth looks like under the beeswax. How much the tooth is oxidized, like if it does the same thing as it would if it had the epoxy on it. He couldn't get either one off. He didn't know which one it was. That's all. No, I won't go get an X-ray. More radiation, that's all I need.
You can't get one from Jennifer, actually, you said it years to be loaded.
It takes years to get a radiation.
Any
From
X-ray?
X-ray, yeah.
I mean, a CAT scan, what do you say?
It's worse.
I know, but how many years does somebody has it?
It could take 20 years from the CAT scan to get rid of all the radioactive.
No diet was
You have to understand, your body is made of minerals. A lot of them are metallic, especially if you eat cooked foods. You have a lot of solidified metal in your system. It is not raw. Cauterized minerals, solid metals, that when they are irradiated, they stay active for sometimes 150 years. You cannot dissolve all of that out of your bone from a diet overnight. It could take 30, 40 years to get rid of all. So every time you get a dose of radiation, you're reactivating.
But you mentioned avocados and oranges.
Oranges will help get it out of the softer tissue. Okay, now I need to go down and start on, you just asked your question. Okay, I need to start and go around the room, or else we're going to be here all night. Do you have questions?
Yeah. My mother has diabetes.
Anybody want an ice cream?
Thank God.
Please ask, you said the raw honey.
Unheated honey.
Raw honey manufactured that you get off.
Well, it has to be an unheated honey that hasn't been heated over 93 degrees. Once it hits 93 degrees, it destroys the insulin-like substance that the bee has produced in its stomach when it swallows nectar. Honey is vomit, bee vomit. Exactly what it is. The bee swallows it, takes it back to the hive. After it's produced the insulin-like substance, which converts 90% of the carbohydrate into enzymes for digesting and utilizing protein. Gets back to the hive as vomit. 93 degrees, that is destroyed. That's why the bees will fan the hive to keep it down to 92.8 degrees. Once the upper layer turns over that for more than about 40 minutes, they leave it. And they go to the next layer and make sure that it doesn't expose it, get beyond that. They will only eat those upper layers. They will never feed it to the drones or to the queen, but the worker bees will eat that only if they're starving. It's gone over 92.8 degrees for very long.
Since sugar feeds tumors, or then the sugars, honey won't do it.
Honey does not do that as long as it's completely unheated. Just remember that there's a difference between the sugar that feeds cancer and the natural sugars that exist in nature. Anytime you use carbohydrate as a sugar in the body, as glycogen, you have a 70 to 80% byproduct. If that is a processed cooked sugar, you have all of these cauterized minerals along with it, so that it causes heavy plaquing and contamination in the system. Those irritate and destroy cells. That is carbohydrate damage, sugar damaged cell. That's what destroys cells. The body mummifies them because it can't dissolve them and get rid of them, and that's what accumulates and makes tumors. Sugar destroys more cells in the human body than any other contaminant. That's why lots of tribes who eat cooked meat don't get cancer, because they don't live on sugars. All of the civilizations that live mainly on carbs, grains, and stuff like that have tapeworms, they have cancers, they have all kinds of distortions. Now, I've been traveling to Taiwan. I traveled to Thailand in February, and I just left Costa Rica a few weeks ago. And they've got these third world people believing that they should not eat meat at all, that they should only eat grains and beans. All of these kids that have babies at 16 and 20, 22 years old, they have these birthmarks and stomachs that have no elasticity to it. These are children, and they all have a gray complexion. They're not ruddy and crisp, and vibrant looking. They are gray, white and gray looking from these diets. Carbohydrate is the worst thing a human can eat. Grains, in the form of grains, potatoes, beans, the worst. Okay, does that answer your question about the honey? Your question? Your question?
I am very popular for more than 1 year now. But I started with the meat.
The raw meat?
The raw meat, yeah. I started having headaches and PMS symptoms. And also cravings and also
bruises?
Yeah. So I had this craving, so I ate.
Craving for
some food that I ate when I was cooked food that I was eating before. So I ate cooked food like pasta, and so somehow the headaches were alleviated. Can you explain that?
Yeah. A lot of times when people grow up on a lot of grains, you have all these sugar byproducts. Now, Columbia University did the test and they found that the byproducts 70 to 90%. In a healthy body, it stores for a lifetime at a rate of 70%, and an unhealthy body at a rate of 90%. If you have not been a meat eater and eaten good fat, good quality fat from meats, you will not have removed any of it in your lifetime. All of a sudden, when you start going on a diet like this, all of a sudden the body's going to get rid of as much as it can from the nervous system as quickly. And that causes swelling in the brain and nervous system. It can cause headaches. If that happens, you have to cut out all other vegetables and just mainly drink celery juice and eat tomatoes to get enough of the salts out of the brain and nervous system so you reduce the swelling, so you won't have as many problems. And as far as the cyclical, female cyclical cycle being painful, that also the female organs do a lot to discharge the poisons. The only thing that I can find that correlates with women living 20% longer is that the vaginal discharge is 20% greater than any man discharges of mucus. Relates right to the equation that women live 20% longer because they have another area to discharge quickly a lot of toxic matter. So in the cycle is where a lot of women will discharge a lot of poison.
So that you also are taking the symptoms?
Correct. And again, it's things that are high in natural sodium, which will help reduce the swelling. Also, pink grapefruit. So if you were to change your juice to only celery for the period of time that you're suffering, and eat a half of a pink grapefruit a day in the afternoon, and tomatoes any other time, then you'll have enough sodium to pull the salts, the toxic salts that cause the swelling out of the system. So you'll have less pain. Your skin is so much better. Okay. Do you have a question, Mary Jo?
Yes, I have a couple. One is regarding the weight loss diet. What do you recommend for doing the
Drink water and eat tomatoes.
Okay, so and regarding clay, can you feel that it is on the liver to dry?
I think using clay is wonderful.
And what about the white, rose, and red clay? They're not the most natural.
Well, I think you're all just remember that clays are toxic. They're like I built a hot tub out of my place, big concrete one, and I wanted to color the cement, so I got natural oxide, and to color it. But what happens is after about 5 or 6 days of that water settling in there, the oxides started coming into the water, and I started having symptoms. And the way I found that out that it was the water was because I let the algae go. The algae is very nice because they slip around and it feels good. After it turned green and was very thick, all of a sudden it started turning yellow. So the cadmium oxide is in that was a part substance of that natural clay that I put in the cement. So it was killing the algae. It was turning it yellow and it was dying.
You don't want to kill the algae, right?
No, don't want to kill the algae. Exactly. So I'm debating on whether I'll tile it now to, so we live and learn. We live and learn. So even, natural clays can be toxic. You just have to be careful. There's cadmium in it. It's a high yellow clay without a lot of, iron in it, like, Rosbod. Rosbod doesn't have iron to chelate with the cadmium so it doesn't absorb. So you just have to be careful. I've learned so much in the past 6 months of studying this clay. I'm still not satisfied to be able to advise. So coral calcium is probably the least toxic of clays to use.
What about pastelite?
Yes. I'm working with it right now. I'll let you know in a couple of months. I just got it 3 weeks ago. I started doing pastelite.
What is that?
It's a clay.
The green clay.
It's a beige clay. But it comes from a thermal bed, which I'm not happy with, because again, minerals are cauterized at high temperature. And this thermal bed is like 700 degrees deep in the earth. So, and of course, that was millions of years ago, but I still don't like using cauterized minerals. Okay. You asked a question? Nope.
I have a question. My ophthalmologist told me that a high percentage of people that grow older have their vitreous humor pull away from their retina. And it's happened to me on the left side. And it's caused a tremendous number of floaters. And it doesn't look
Quite entertaining, isn't it?
Yeah, I try to get that one over there. Yeah, the damn thing doesn't move as fast as I'd like it to. And I was just wondering, is it possible to alleviate that situation?
I use batter eating, believe it or not, red meat. Red meat with cream and butter combined. Theoretically, you think that because the eye has more nerves than anything else than muscle, that it would be like nerves reconstituted with white meat there. But in all of my experiments with people and myself, red meat is the only thing that will clear up the focus and the floaters, which are waste products and your body's not breaking down. It all depends upon the individual. So eat as much as it takes to refocus and get rid of the floaters.
Same thing for the ears?
No, it's a little different. It's more white meat.
You mean it's possible to do that?
I've had quite a few people do it. Some people, on the diet for a long time, it stopped their advancement, but it didn't clear up the eyes much. I mean, like I said in the book, some people who put egg white in the eyes have restored their vision, and butter in their eyes, and restored their vision. Improved greatly as long as they follow the diet. If you don't replace, the nutrients properly, you're not going to rebuild the eye. And the fat isn't going to do as great, nor is the protein from the egg white. But it was always in conjunction with that. Others, who've been, who had worn glasses since they were children, 3, 5 years old. I got 2 of them who were like that. And I suggested they had laser surgery. So they had laser surgery, and that was, one of them was 10 years ago, and the other one was 8 years ago, and they had no recession. They healed quicker than anybody else. The doctors had seen anybody heal, and they produced no scar tissue there, and they were fine. It's the only surgery I recommend. Frank, you have a question?
No, I don't.
Okay. Well, wait a minute. Your question started the whole thing. We have your question. Okay. Harvey, do you have a question?
Regarding the pain, we cannot find the difference between pain that is curing or pain.
There is no such thing as a pain that's debilitating as long as you're on a good diet. Pain is always a result of the body correcting itself. It's swelling in a particular area. The body's always trying to heal itself. It will correct itself if you're feeding it the right nutrients. Whether you're on the diet or off the diet, you go through the same pain. It's just that you will go through less pain on the diet, and you will cleanse properly and heal properly. I had to go through, I was crawling on the floor like a worm because I was in such pain after they cauterized my spine from the radiation. I mean, I was in so severe pain I couldn't move my entire body. I had to crawl on the floor like this. It'd take me 30 minutes to get across the room. So I had gallon jars that I urinated, buckets that I shat in, and then somebody would come and clean them out every couple of days. So my house stunk like hell. But that's the way I lived because I was in severe pain. But I was on a good diet, and I knew that I just had to wait it out and get it through. I mean, I tried to commit suicide a couple times, but it didn't work. So I had to endure. So no pain is not justified. It's just you want to reduce it with good nutrients, like the pain formula that's in the book. We'll reduce it most of the time. Hot water bottles to relax the area so it doesn't cause pressure on the nerves. That will reduce pain.
And go back pain, joint pain.
That's, again, swelling in that area. In that joint, put 2 hot water bottles on either side of your knee. And use the pain formula once or twice a day with your meat. Eric, do you have a question?
You have a question?
No, I just want to come. I've been through with the back, and it will go away. And you just got to have faith it's going to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, someday you do it. I should.
Now, I mean, people who've had back injuries and back problems like he do spend the rest of their life in pain. He only goes through it for maybe 3 or 4 weeks.
It's always last time it was only like 7, 8 days.
Oh, terrific.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, and that's what happens on this diet. You go through a detoxification. Each time you start cleaning out that area, it gets to the point where it's clean. It's quick.
It's possible that bones also have pain.
Pardon?
And the pain formula you have to work.
Yes, in the recipe book. The new one in the recipe book. It's better, works better.
How long does it take the body to start detoxing and cleaning? How long do you have to be on it before it starts to cleanse?
It depends upon the individual. You saw our milkman, James Stewart, he went 2.5 years on the diet without ever going to a detox. He had been a vegetarian for almost 30 years. He was 50 years old when he went on the diet. He was 138 pounds, 6'3", 138 pounds. See how skinny he was. Now he's 210. So he had gone all his life eating nothing but chips and garbage. So his body took 2.5 years just to strengthen itself to get ready to detox. Other people will go right into it. All depends. It's an individual thing. Eric, do you have a question?
Yeah, 2 quick questions. First one is, which foods can you eat to get magnesium? And the second one is, if you can tell us how often you eat all of those, and like what foods you combine with to get.
Okay. Magnesium occurs in all foods. High in parsley and green leafy vegetables, high in milk, it's high in cheeses, all the dairy products, very high in meat.
Dairy, I've always heard that it's undoubted.
Grass-fed. You get grass-fed dairy. It's very different.
What about now?
Yeah, but almonds are too difficult to digest for any human. But if you have the nut formula, you will get a certain amount. But again, you've got all the phytic acid you have to deal with. That's why I want to recommend it once or twice a week. But meat's your best source of magnesium. Just remember that you don't need all of those counterbalancing minerals when you're eating a raw diet. When you pasteurize, even when you just take the milk up to 141 degrees, you cauterize 50% of the calcium to balance that toxic mineral. And the potassium destroys is like 97 degrees. It's altered at 97 degrees. So you have all these mineral imbalances. You have to have a lot of other minerals, potassium, magnesium, to deal with all of these cauterized minerals. When you're eating it raw, there's no excessive need for calcium, nor an excessive need for magnesium or potassium.
What does cauterize mean exactly?
Burn, solid. It's taking clay,
Yeah.
and when you fire it, what happens? It turns it sharp and hard.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cauterizing. It solidifies it. It just seals it into a form where it can't be bioactivated.
You know, the boil mineral water and then get on the white cauterized mineral water.
At the bottom, that's cauterized minerals. And that's what comes out of your teeth.
Stuff that's inside the kettle and all that.
That's inside your body. Everything you eat that's cooked forms that in the body. You have all that mineral product, that chalk. It's all very poor mineral relationship. That's why everybody has osteoporosis and breaks and brittles of the bones as they get older. Cauterized minerals. They're brittle. They're not like clay. They don't bond properly.
When you were talking about the almonds, that they're too hard to digest, I heard you mention citric acid.
Phytic
acid, is that, were you talking about the almonds?
All nuts have phytic acid. All seeds have phytic acid. Phytic acid prevents the body from digesting protein for 24 to 48 hours later. Average is 36 hours. Not only the protein in the nuts, but any other protein, whether it's eggs, milk, or meat that you eat afterward. So that's why I worked very hard at coming up with a formula to use with the nuts that neutralize the phytic acid. And that's grinding it until it's a flour, adding the egg, a fat, Bailey butter, and honey. And that does not occur unless you overeat the nuts.
So the almonds just have too much.
Yes.
This your diet is very acid, so all the protein is acid for you. Now, in order for the body to be really healthy, you have to be more alkaline.
Only the blood has to be alkaline. That's why you have 4 cups of vegetable juice a day. That takes care of it. And I explain that in the recipe book. You had another part of it?
The deep pollen.
Oh, the deep pollen. I usually don't take 2 questions because it gets too involved. If we have time to go around again, we will. Okay. Nothing?
Well, I do. It's about the raw honey, raw butter combination and the recipe. Can you saturate yourself like that? When you do your insulin level and go it out? Or you mainly not just, just put in the sugar? It's almost like an ice. If you just, the raw honey and butter, you can eat it all day long. Sometimes I have to do that.
Again, remember the honey has a natural insulin already in it from the bee. So it doesn't react that way. I put, juvenile diabetics on the unheated honey. And the sugar level goes way up in their blood, but it causes no symptoms. Correct. There are no symptoms.
You can actually eat. What about eating honey by itself?
And the cholesterol levels and sugar levels are fine as long as they're not toxic substances. Cholesterol, having a high cholesterol level is the best thing you can have in our society. To deal with poisons, a ton of poisons. We breathe them in every day.
You actually think that, happens with or other than mixing it with honey, how else do you get it down?
Well, you make sauces. All the sauces in the recipe. There's butter in everything. You put butter with everything.
And the insaturated fat in the butter itself, it will raise your cholesterol level, but what part goes up? The LDL or the HDL?
It doesn't matter. When it's raw, it doesn't matter.
So why does it matter? Sorry.
Did you read?
Yes, it did.
It doesn't matter because there are no side effects from it. There's no disease produced. All of the tribes that eat lots of it and have very high cholesterol levels have no heart disease and no plaquing. Plaquing came about with cooked vegetable oils. You can take a vegetable oil, safflower oil, pour it in the dirt, and what will happen? That dirt will turn into a rock. Turn into a rock. If you take cream or butter and you put it in the dirt, it molds and breaks down and becomes earth. Feeds numerous bugs and insects and earth creatures. It's fertilizing, but vegetable oil is not. The main thing we use vegetable oil is to run our cars and machinery. That's a dinosaur oil, but it's an animal oil, but because it's been processed and heated, it turns into a solidified substance. But your vegetable oils are the main reason for hardening of the arteries. We had very little heart disease and very little congestive arteries until the pressed oil industry came out with all this, saturated fat's bad, this safflower oil is good, corn oil is good. Once cooked, those will harden the body quickly.
So the addition to bread, grains, really do affect the crackling in the arteries.
Well, in combination with the cauterized minerals in those cooked foods, because in grains, those minerals are very concentrated, very hard and very solid, lots of metallic minerals in grains, especially if it's grown with chemicals. And you put all those poisons in, you cook them, they become free radicals, and the brain uses most of those metals, nervous system. So that's why people are not very scattered. But civilizations have known that for a long time. They kept all the lackeys in China. 90% of their diet was grain. And in Egypt, they did the same thing for the slaves. They wanted to keep them emotionally imbalanced and physically hyperactive to do the work. And the royalty, they lived almost entirely on fats and meat. And warriors were in between. Garbage. Yeah, that's such hype. I did that for a year and a half, and macrobiotic diet. Yeah, I've witnessed that for so many years. I do not know one person who survived that I knew. Did not know one of those people who survived the macrobiotic diet. That is wishful thinking. Salt and grain. That's about all the diet is.
Salt and grain.
Salt and grain. That's what diet is. Cooked, high pressure steamed rice mainly. Do you have a question? Okay. Bee pollen is a nut. It's a seed. It even has a shell on it. Once that shell is dried, a human cannot digest it. Pass through you. So anytime you see bee pollen, it's hard little pellet, you may as well throw your money away if you're going to buy it, because it's of no value. You digest less than 2% of it. You have to eat it fresh, soft, and your digestive juices will actually just dissolve the shell away. And it's a very finite protein. That's why I like to use it in the pain formula, because the molecules of fat are so fine and so small that they can get into the nerve endings. And once the protein gets there, all the extra swelling can leave. That's how the pain formula works. You've got all the minerals from the cheese that will help draw out the toxic minerals. Now, remember, anytime a mineral is not bioactive, like in cheese, what the body's going to do with those minerals is attach them to other toxic minerals in the blood. That means that all the bioactive minerals that are in your juice, meat, and dairy, other than dried cheese, will be utilized to be absorbed into the cells. So you don't have to waste any of those bioactive minerals binding with those toxic minerals that are in the body. Use the cheese for that. That's how I came up with the pain formula. Pollen supplies the protein that can be absorbed into the finite capillaries and the nerve endings, the nerve platelets, so that the fluid can be removed, and therefore reducing the pain. Because remember, all pain is swelling in the nerves. Then the toxic minerals that may be floating are drawn out with the cheese. Generally, the egg and the butter helps chelate with other toxic substances that were buried in and locked in that particular area where the nerves are suffering, or the nerves are experiencing pain. So bee pollen is very important for that, for nerves. It's great for nerves. If you have it with fruit, it's a waste. So the time to have bee pollen is always with meat, eggs, and butter, or in combination with eggs and butter, or meat.
How much
will be utilized right.
How much would you normally take?
Well, I recommend that people have the pain formula once a week regardless. And anywhere from 2 to 4 tablespoons of bee pollen. But you can utilize more if you want. I mean, like today, I lost so much weight. I lost almost 25 pounds going to Costa Rica because they took a lot of my food away when I got in there. No. The customs, not customs, but their agriculture. They're as bad as we are. They don't let anything in their country. They took my eggs away. They took my honey away. A lot of stuff. I did smuggle some butter. I didn't tell them where some of my butter was, so I didn't take it all. Or some of my cream.
You couldn't get it back when you leave?
They don't allow. No, they're not going to keep it for 14 days. Can you imagine what a storage house they would have if they did that? They'd throw it away. So I didn't have the foods that I needed there, and I didn't find a place to get raw butter until my last 2 days there. But there was a health food store there that had raw butter from water buffalo and raw milk and everything. So I chowed down, but it wasn't enough to really get it back. And then I started going through a heavy detoxification. Even before I went, when I went in April, when I went to the day that I left for Nevada City, California, I started getting a detox in this bursa. And, I had bursitis, as you know, but it was mainly in the feet and legs, sometimes in the elbows and wrists. It was the first time I got it here. And it was so painful that by the time I drove all the way up to Sacramento, that night I had to put the arm in a sling. It was so painful. So after a few days of this, I'd have to sleep in the bathtub. It was so painful because I couldn't lie, I couldn't be in any position. The only place it was comfortable was in a sling like this. If I lied down, the pain was excruciating, no matter which way. So I had to sleep in the bathtub at night. So I slept 6 to 8 hours a night in the bathtub. And then it was okay for the rest of the day. I was still in severe pain. But I went ahead with, my 8 hours of workshops and my 10 hours a day of seeing patients through that whole thing. But on the third day, all of a sudden, I smelled this penicillin coming out of my armpit. And then the mercury coming out of my hand. All of a sudden, my hand one morning turned black and gray from here down. And it smelled just like mercury. So I knew right away what it was when I was 12 years old and had the peritonitis that they misdiagnosed as appendicitis. They injected me in this arm, and these 2 hips. Now, I've gone through the detoxification on these 2 hips and this arm, but never this arm. And I had 11 shots in this arm in 3 days. They were injecting me with penicillin and other antibiotics and tetanus. They always give you tetanus if you have appendicitis. They knew I didn't have appendicitis, but they would give me tetanus anyway. And repeated tetanus. You're only supposed to get one every 6 months max. So they're being shot up with all this mercury, liquid mercury, the thimerosal from these injections. So then I realized what it was, that the antibiotics that they injected in me at 12 years old was finally discharging and it buried itself in the bursa. So my hand was black, my armpit would smell like penicillin and other molds. And then, guess what? I still go through it every once in a while. I couldn't lift my arm this high for about 3 weeks. And then when I went down to Costa Rica, it was finally better because the humidity is better for that kind of thing. You get moisture in, your body can utilize the nutrients better. It doesn't have to build its own mucus just protecting for the dryness. So all of a sudden, 2 days ago, where I was injected all those times, there it is.
Oh, wow.
Let's see.
All of a sudden it popped up 2 days ago. And you can see the 5 of the holes, 6 of the holes where they stabbed me, and the scabs. Yeah.
It took so many years to come out.
Yeah, it took so many years. Like you said, it takes 40 years to go from ill health to optimal health. You ever smell mercury? Did you ever play with mercury?
No.
Oh, it's a heavy metallic that almost makes your mouth, turn alamy.
Turn what?
Yeah. Have you ever had a unripe banana?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Okay, that's an alamy kind of taste, where it kind of dries out and acidifies your mouth. Okay, that's a long answer. Yes, Clay.
Am I next?
Yes.
Eggs. Talk about eggs in the detoxification process. Just, talking about the teeth and all that. Just talk about eggs in that process. And how
With the teeth process?
Well, just generally detoxing, and also what would you recommend somebody, like I have 2 raw eggs today, I eat 2 raw eggs.
That's all.
That should do it.
Eggs don't detoxify unless you eat them with fruit. Then you make a solvent of that fat and protein. Eggs by themselves are always healing, reconstituting. They do not help you divide cells. So they don't help with cellular reproduction. But they can take a live cell and reconstitute it with all the nutrients in the egg. So it can make a very sick cell very healthy, but it won't help you reproduce cells. If you mix a fruit, detoxification too quickly.
So a smoothie will make you...
Pardon?
Smoothie will make you...
Smoothies make you go through more detoxification. Fruit, along with the fat and eggs, will make you detoxify. It makes solvents, it makes viruses to dissolve toxic compounds in your body.
But not the cream milk and eggs, that alone, without the...
No, that helps constitute and feed your body just like a baby. Eat and sleep, eat and sleep.
So how often could you have a smoothie? Could you recommend?
Depends on how much you want to detoxify. No, I recommend only having fruit once a day. If you want to have the smoothie with that, that's fine. But once a day. Other than that, you're taking a risk on, coming down with a heavy detoxification. And remember, when your body makes a solvent to dissolve compounds, you've got a lot of excess waste. I prefer people eating moldy foods and high meats and stuff like that, so the bacteria reduces those compounds to a smaller substance. That's a much better way to do it. It isn't as enjoyable as a smoothie. It makes detoxification less painful and almost non-existent as far as inconvenience in the body, unless you do get unless it causes a bacterial meningitis. Then you're in for the detoxification. But that takes at least 8 ounces of high fish to do that. Once you've had it several times, all of a sudden your body starts liking that odor. Like in the Eskimos, they smell that and they just start getting excited. They turn flesh red like Juliana. And they jump up and down and have a great time. They love that. They know how it's going to make them high and happy right away, and it gets them through the winter. Have all that bacteria. Pardon? Yes, that is. It's their narcotic for sure. Okay, do you have a question?
What do you recommend as an initial treatment to person that falls and the joint starts swell? I know that you don't recommend ice, all right?
Correct.
What do you recommend?
Amputation. No, anytime you have a bruised cartilage in there, and the nerves are bruised too, you have to have swelling. Circulation has to come in there and remove the bruised tissue and the damaged byproducts in order for the knee to repair itself or the joint to repair itself. That's why athletes burn out very young in life. They keep putting ice on something, it never cleanses properly, the dead tissue stays in there. Gradually, their cartilage isn't solid and doesn't work anymore. So they get shots of cortisone to numb the nerves and keep doing that until they're useless. There are tribes in the Andes and all over the world that even at 90 years old, they're still running 200 miles a year. They do a ball exercise, a football exercise, where they'll, through the mountains, where there's not as much oxygen, 200 miles they play this game once a year. They don't have that problem because they never use ice on their bruises or anything. So if you put hot water bottles there, it helps all the tendons relax so that the swelling can occur without the pain. Remember again, the pain is the swelling in the nerve endings, the capillaries, the nerve platelets. So you just have to make sure everything's heated so it relaxes and expands.
You said something you broke a leg or something.
I'll talk about that another time. Yeah. Hi. Well, you can sit there, come and sit down. So the best thing to do is apply heat.
How long after?
Immediately.
Oh, immediately.
Immediately for days until the pain stops. Even any kind. Anytime you have pain, apply hot water. Always. Any circumstance. Even if it's internal, you have pain in your liver. RVs. But when your pain goes through the problems after eating, a lubrication formula, put a hot water bottle here so that the liver relaxes and it can start working properly. After I ate the poison mushroom, my liver was in severe pain. I got headaches from that liver pain. But let me tell you, I forced myself to eat 1.5 to 2 pounds of butter a day because I know that liver would shut down and I didn't force it. And I strapped a hot water bottle, 2 hot water bottles to me. I belted the 2 hot water bottles to my stomach so that I could get through it.
It takes down the swelling of the knee.
No. What it does is it allows everything to relax and stretch and expand without the pain, without the tearing and the pull and the pressure.
What about swelling?
Same thing. Swelling of the liver, swelling is what causes the pain. If everything relaxes, it can take this expansion without pain. Still use the hot water bottle because it will increase circulation so that you can clean that area out quickly.
Would heat actually cause swelling to worsen?
For a few minutes. Yeah, but it doesn't increase the pain, it reduces the pain. Once everything starts relaxing, it actually reduces the pain. It just takes about 5 minutes.
So the heat actually speeds up the healing process.
Exactly. It does, because that increases circulation.
Right.
Circulation means you bring the more nutrients in, more waste products out. And you have to have the swelling or you don't mend. You don't cleanse and you don't heal. And you end up like all the athletes that are pumped by their coaches and doctors with cortisol and steroids and packed with ice. So they can get right back on the field and ruin themselves for life. Exactly. Not if you're on a good diet. Sure, if you've got very tight tendons, you would be an athlete in the first place. And if you're an athlete, you can handle the heat. That's what they do. They say for 3 days use ice, then after that use heat. Well, your most critical stage is in the first 3 days to get rid of the bruise and toxic substances out of that area. You know what I mean?
I did. We are sitting inside, safe. It's easy. Okay.
Okay? No. If you have sand, if you have anything that they put in, they have these heat applications where you stick it in the microwave. Okay, can you imagine how many metallic metals are all of a sudden going to be irradiated? You're going to put that there, and it's going to emit radiation through your skin, through your lymph system? Not very bright. Just get those hot water bottles. If you don't want a plastic one with BPA in it, there's out of England, they make these pure rubber hot water bottles. They stink like hell. They stink like rubber. It takes 6 months or so to get rid of the odor, but they won't cause the BPA to secrete in your skin. Timber something. It's a natural health food store. A natural, so-called natural clothing, camping products and stuff like that store.
Vermont Country
Vermont Country Store.
You say the fake rubber hot water bottle.
Yeah.
And you leave it on the sun.
And let me tell you, they don't break like the plastic ones.
You leave it in the sun 6 weeks.
That's what I do. I leave it on 6 months. 6 weeks minimum. Yeah.
6 weeks.
Because it's real rubber.
But you got to leave it 6 months, or you can't use it for 6 months.
No, you can use it. It's just that if you don't like, I hate the smell of rubber. So I leave mine. That's mine out for some of them. I got 5 of them at once. 4 of them out in the weather for 6 months, and one I only left for 6 months because I want to use it.
For 6 weeks.
6 weeks, yeah.
Relating to that stuff about the swelling and things, I think a lot of us operate in a world where we're around roughly people, but other people also. And I was wondering if a child got hurt like that, which I've run into, would I be doing something bad because of my food?
No, it's better. Children have a lot of growth hormones. So they will heal. And if they heal quickly and that garbage is left there, they will scar. And they'll never develop problems. So heat on a child all the time on an older adult, that could be a little risky. But if they're over 50, then it could be, a risk.
So another thing, just throw out that old plastic, throw out the plastic hot water bottle.
That's what I did.
I'll throw it out, okay.
Do you have a question, Teresa?
Water. I've been complaining to exercise and I don't have energy. I have water and I try much water too to help. But I do feel better when I'm not drinking water every day. But I've been drinking water. So what's happening?
Well, when, like I said, water dissolves matter. So, and it will leach nutrients out of your body. When you're exercising, you're producing a lot of lactic acid and a lot of waste products. Water is good for that.
Drink water when you exercise?
For most people, that are exercising heavily, perspiring a lot, unless you've been on the diet a while, then you don't need to do that. But when you're young on the diet, water is helpful.
So I always have my green juice. I always have 32 ounces of that. I'm trying to figure out where to take water before I exercise.
I would say during and immediately after, not before. No way. Because then you'll start leaching your nutrients before you start exercising. You need the water once you begin exercising.
What about the sparkling water? Is that better?
That's better. Like I say in the book, in my lab test, the carbonated water, there was always an increase in nitrogen in the intestines and oxygen.
So it's better for not having energy?
Well, I wouldn't say that it reduces leaching, but if you're exercising, you have all these waste products, that's what it's breaking down. It's breaking this, absorbing those products and breaking it down. And that's fine. Celeste.
I just have a better question on water. Do you recommend not valley for water at all?
That's a good water. Well, I haven't talked to them in 3 years, but 3 years ago they weren't doing anything to the water.
Someone actually told me that the calcium content is extremely high in that water.
It's not cauterized water. There's no thermal pool around that water. It's in the Ozarks, in Arkansas.
So even though the calcium levels increase, it's pretty safe.
Calcium in water will just magnetize toxic calcium out of your blood, like cheese does.
Right.
But it'll also take a lot of other things out. If you're exercising, it's fine. Like I said, I don't recommend people drink water unless they exercise. I'm saying if they've been on the diet a long time, even if you're exercising, you don't need a lot of water. Better to drink milk. Like eat tomatoes, eat more vegetable juice.
The Mountain Valley water, right? We used to use it and heat it, like make a cup of tea in years and years ago.
You're cauterizing those minerals.
Yeah, so that's why I had that white powdery stuff in the
Correct.
pot.
But no matter what kind of minerals it's concentrated in, they'll all turn up white once the water is evaporated. Doesn't matter what kind of minerals.
Yeah, so then when I filtered the water, I didn't have that problem. But I mean, so you,
Then it leached even more substances out of your body.
oh really?
Oh, yeah.
Because it doesn't have as many minerals.
Because it's basically distilled water.
I see. Okay.
And it's very hungry water. Rainwater is distilled water. And when that hits the ground, it starts dissolving the earth, and that's how plants eat. Celestial.
Yes, sometimes if I haven't been able to get all my juices in, I'll make them, more in amount. But is that in general?
You'll have more at one time.
Right, is that like not a good thing to do? Is it better to have it like spread out, or is that okay to do that? Or
I would say for you it's a bad thing to do, just because I want to irritate you. No, it's fine to do.
it is okay?
I just recently started getting white spots on my fingernails, like maybe the last month. And I've read different things like calcium or lack of zinc. So what's your experience with that?
Well, like I say, don't try to counterbalance it like that. Those signs are just signs that you're detoxifying a particular concentration of something and you're building into the nails. Not something you should even worry about, unless it's painful.
No, but so you feel it's actually I'm detoxing rather than it's like an information
Anytime you're
that I'm
detoxing, you're going to have certain kinds of deficiencies. As long as you're constantly eating a balanced diet, you're always going to supply the right balance.
So why is there deficiency?
Let's say you're detoxing, mercury.
Okay.
Okay. There's a certain balance of minerals that will attach to a mercury molecule to harness it, to prevent it from doing damage in your system. That can cause a potassium, magnesium, a zinc, and one other mineral that are very concentrated, being utilized to do that.
Okay.
Just to control it, to magnetize to it. So you start having a deficiency periodically if you don't keep up your eating. If you're eating, balanced, the primal diet, balanced diet on a daily basis, throughout the day, you're always going to keep up with that loss. Yeah, the vegetable juice is your vitamin, enzymes, and mineral supplement. All bioactive, all very utilizable. And let me tell you, 4 glasses a day far exceeds the mineral concentration that your body could even use in one day, unless you were an athlete, working out for 5 to 8 hours a day. Those people I have taking, 16 ounces of juice at a time, 4 to 5 times a day. Sometimes quart if they're 6 foot something tall at a time.
For the athletes here.
Correct. Oh yeah, tremendous. For the perspiration, whatever juice it is, I recommend to them.
I did.
You forgot.
No, I got it. I have
You
two.
passed 10.
I know. I have 2 questions. I'll choose this one. It's about being in the sun.
Uh-huh.
I like to go in the sun, and I have not done anything like some of the other things you've recommended. I just go in straight. And I've always been drawn to the sun. That's why, you know, I get, I don't know, do you think there's such thing as that, what do they call it, people who get sad when it's moving up?
Oh, that's a very, it's a vitamin D deficiency. It does go off in depression. That's why there's so many suicides in Sweden and Finland.
So I've always felt good and regenerated in the sun.
Yes.
And a little down when it's not the sun. Does that mean I have the...
It means you have a vitamin D deficiency, you need the sun. I went through that up until about 3 years ago. It took me how many years, you know, eating meat on a daily basis. It took me 17 years to get to the point where this kind of weather doesn't depress me.
So what I should be doing is stay in the sun more?
Yeah.
Okay, and how much is okay to be in the sun before it affects
Well,
your
it
skin?
depends on what you want. You know, I'm an opportunist. I use anything I can to get well quicker. So, you know, when I lived out on a bicycle and wasn't eating meat, my skin got like leather, like the Indians you see. And to help get rid of it, when I started eating all the meat and all the fat, I would scorch myself until I peeled layers of skin off. And it was a natural skin peel, so I don't have all that scar tissue or that thick tissue in it. And I still use it. When I was down in Costa Rica, I had been out in the sun for, you know, hardy sun. It was raining all the time down there, but there was one sunny day, so I took full advantage of it. So anywhere where I have wrinkles, that scar tissue, I peel. And it's great, because now I look really younger.
I'm
So I take full advantage of it. So you can burn yourself if you want.
Okay, I don't burn very often at all. But,
I don't either.
But I'm finding some of the marks on my face, or I had this thing that started a red mark on my forehead after being in the sun.
Well, sometimes what happens is vitamin D helps get rid of poison pigments that are in the body. Let's say you ate some cake with some food coloring in it, and that got into an area. And you have to understand, even in the blue, there's cobalt, there's radioactive minerals in that coloring. So they get into your body and they cause damage, and then your body has to secrete it to get rid of it. Vitamin D helps pull toxic pigments out of the system.
So I could go out and lie in the sun for 3 hours.
Correct, absolutely.
You don't want to look
And
directly.
usually all of those spots that come out go away, most of them, on this diet. Sometimes they may take a year and a half to go away.
What about the white spot?
The white spots is your body. In my laboratory test, I took scrapings on the skin of those white spots because I had them severely once I started eating all the cream. I was eating a quart of cream a day, you know, with a quart of carrot juice. And, you know, I was exercising and had all that. I was eating lots of eggs and lots of fish to build myself up. And I had huge white spots all over. So I took a scraping and I found that those particular cells absorb the vitamin D rapidly, but it could also release it into the body. Whereas the other skin areas weren't as healthy. They absorb the vitamin D, they absorb the sun to transform the fats in the skin into vitamin D. That's the process.
So
And those
it's an area that's taking
that
in more vitamin D.
absorbs vitamin, you can take the sun, radiation,
Yeah.
use it in the fat to turn it into vitamin D, and then release it into the system quickly. So those are healthier cells in that area. And when the others catch up,
The brown spots, what are those?
those are usually just what they're called liver spots. They can be either liver, gallbladder, spleen, or pancreas. The dark glands, when the cells in the glands can no longer produce hormones anymore, they're not functional to the gland. They no longer secrete anything but prostaglandins, which are only for the maintenance of the cell itself. So the body says, well, you know, you're not any help in the liver, and I need to get rid of you because you're, you know, taking up space and energy in the liver, so I'll send you out to the skin where you can function as a barrier.
Do they go away after being
When they die, you know, the liver cell can live 50 years.
You gotta go without sunglasses too. You need something else.
Oh, yeah, that's. But if your eyes are too sensitive, you can burn your retina. So some people have to have sunglasses. It's best to have them away from your eyes a little bit so sunlight can pass into it if you have that sensitive eye.
Which way are we going?
Pardon? Yeah.
So all my life, I have been very happy when it was raining and cloudy out.
Because you burn from the sun.
And I get, my moods are very, very good in cool, cloudy weather. So, and I've always felt extremely irritable at the sun, much less on the diet. I'm wondering if I should just trust that and not do the sun thing. People are drawn to feel it, it must be right for them.
Correct.
I really don't, I do not know where people go by.
That's a severe fat deficiency. Severe fat deficiency. Where you're not able to transform the radiation to vitamin D so it does irritate the system instead of aids it. And it takes a while. I was the same way as a child. I couldn't get in the sun. My hair was toe white when I was born, and my skin was so white that if I got in the sun for 10 minutes, I would blister. And I would get very irritable, nasty. But, now that I've had all this fat, for so long, I love the sun.
You're saying over time.
Unless I go in the desert, and I'm stuck in the desert, you start dehydrating along with the sun. I can still feel lean. Lean as a rabbit.
But you're still advocating sun, even though I'm irritable.
Well, like I said, you need to get little amounts of it at a time. And it may be a year or two before you're ready to take it. But do a little at a time. 10 minutes at a time isn't going to make you crazy.
The thought of it makes me crazy. I'm just being irritable right now talking about it.
Okay, then wait another 6 months. Try it then. Yes.
How do you wean from a lifetime medication?
No, everybody gets one question before we go back to that. Okay, do you have a question, Jim?
Yeah, I sure do.
You've been to Hawaii and had vacation. You don't deserve it.
Hey, I'm back, okay? But I'm trying to do the weight loss diet. I got off to a good start, and then I didn't lose any weight, get bloated, and regular vegetable juice makes me feel queasy. So I'm in a kind of a rough spot. So I think I'm just going to quit until I get an appetite back, right, or some kind of. Because I quit trying to do the weight loss because I don't even get hungry all day. I feel bloated. I don't even want to eat. Vegetable juice makes you feel like throwing up. I don't know what's going on.
Sounds like you're detoxing.
Yeah.
So I would change the diet. The weight loss program for you should be different. So you have to give me a call, and that'll take 15 minutes to get it.
Okay. And then one other meeting question about the weight loss. In your recipe book, there's all kinds of great meat recipes and sauces and stroganoff and this and that. Do those count as meat? I mean,
Absolutely.
So in other words, if you get a golf ball size meat stroganoff, it counts as a golf ball size. I mean, the mushrooms and all that stuff is okay.
Okay. Just remember, when you're on a weight loss program, you don't want as much fat.
Okay.
Yes.
So
you should stick with butter and not cream.
but the recipes in general, okay, they're using butter instead of cream.
Well, like you say, if you use those recipes on the weight loss, you're going to have some difficulty. You're going to be much more hungry.
So we should just stick to the meat.
Yeah. And just remember, the more meat that you eat, the quicker you will lose the weight. People start eating the juices and do everything else, and eat the tomatoes and drink a little milk, and then they don't eat the meat. And they say, I'm not losing any weight. Well, hell, what do you think burns fat? Pyruvate. You've got to have the protein, the meat to do it. This is why the Sears diet works, the zone diet, Put so much meat into the system, it burns all the fat up.
I have a question on that line. During the weight loss, the fat is, how different the fat is detox without reaching on top of that as you lose weight?
Well, the lymph system doesn't dump a lot into the blood. But you're eating, you're not fasting, you're eating enough to deal with those toxins that get into the blood. Most of it will go through the skin. So, you get into a hot bath, and perspire a little bit more, or a sauna for a few minutes. Don't cook yourself in the sauna. If you actually cook the vitamin D and the vitamin A in your skin, if you're doing it too long, more than, let's say, 9 minutes, if you're at a level of about 130 degrees. If you're up on top of 160 degrees, you can count on getting rid of a lot of nerves with the cells as well, if you're up there cooking. So stay at a lower rung if you're in there, no more than 8, 9 minutes. If you're at a level where it's 130 degrees, 127 to 130 degrees. If you're in a hot bath that's, 105 or 6 degrees, you can be there for an hour, 2 hours. When I'm in pain, like when I had my spine cauterized and I was in constant pain and I had to crawl on the floor, I lived in the bathtub 16, 18 hours a day. I rewarmed the water every hour and a half, 2 hours, and I lived in the bathtub. I was painless in the bathtub, relatively painless in the bathtub. I was able to scream a lot of poison. But some of that, that fat is bound to the poison. Your body has, the lymph system has to dissolve it. You try to push most of it out to the skin. The best thing you can do is take hot baths on the way down. Cycle.
Would a steam or a hot or a nice sauna be better than the hot?
No, because it burns the sinuses. It will burn the lungs. It will get in and damage the mucous membranes.
What is the question?
Whether steam baths would be better.
You never go in steam?
Never.
So the dry sauna is much better.
If you're in that kind of hot substance, you have to understand, steam is 212 degrees.
Oh,
Okay? That burns the mucus right through the mucus to the cells. So you'll reduce your ability to absorb oxygen. You'll reduce your ability to produce mucus that protects you from pollution. Not a good thing. Very risky.
What are your salads?
Let me get around here.
Yeah.
You have a question?
Yeah.
That's what we just talked about. Sauna.
Sauna's
No, I
okay.
said, the thing I was talking about was sauna, dry heat.
Dry heat is okay.
I do a fair amount of work on my car, and recently I've gotten a little concerned about
Lathe operators and mechanics.
Lathe?
Lathe operators and mechanics.
Lathe.
Lathe.
Oh, lathe.
Lathe. You know what a lathe is?
Oh, machine, okay.
A lathe is a machine that turns something and you cut it. You shape it with a cut. Cut it.
So I should
Okay.
so I should wear gloves and just touch as little.
And if you're playing around with brake fluid or kerosene, you better wear a mask.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Does your cream help at all? I've been using that.
Yes, it does. You can put it in your hands and then put gloves over that.
Yeah.
Protect you a lot better. Put it on your face, anywhere your body's exposed, because those vapors will come up and get right into your skin. And those are heavy metals that are vaporized.
So sufficient, like if you touch it, does it stay in your skin, or does it get absorbed right into your body too?
Oh, it gets into the skin and absorbs into the body, because the lymph system has to deal with it. So the lymph system can't handle it, it will get absorbed into all kinds of tissue. Very toxic.
Yeah.
Mechanics and lathe operators. Especially airplanes.
Really?
They use more solvents than any mechanic. Okay, you have a question, Kathy?
Oh, yeah, first of all, I just wanted to mention about the lady at Lily's, Diane. She's agreed to have a try with the buffalo meat for the chicken. With it comes in this Tuesday, the buffalo meat that would graze on grass and well water. She's ordered 2 pounds already. I saw her today. She said she wanted to pay me, but I said wait till I get it. It's either come in this Tuesday, I'll get it, or he'll let me know tomorrow night.
What?
About the buffalo meat. They're going to try her chickens on eating buffalo meat.
Who?
Lily's woman,
Okay,
Diane.
okay,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. So they're going to see how it works with that.
So our eggs will be raised on buffalo?
Well, I
they'll
mean,
be
the first,
range, but see, she feeds them some supplemental nutrients to give them protein.
yeah, but
And I try to get away from that because chickens naturally eat meat. All the chickens and ducks eat lots of meat. That's why they eat each other. They don't get enough protein. So the industry, the FDA, USDA said, okay, we want to stop you from feeding these animals animal byproducts, and we want you to only use grains. And the soybean industry grows and grows and grows. But chickens cannot eat soybeans without processing just like humans. If a chicken eats raw soybeans, it will kill them. It's like it kills humans. So they have to be solvent extracted. That's like soaking your food in kerosene for 20 minutes and eating it. So soy is highly toxic for chickens and humans.
so I'll be delivering it to her on Wednesday at the farmer's market in Santa Monica.
So now,
If it comes in
I've
this
been
week,
trying to get people
2
to
weeks.
feed waste, and fresh, raw, waste animal products to their chickens, which is natural. They do it in Pangai in Hawaii. And let me tell you, they are the most sedentary, nice, friendly ducks I've ever met. Because my grandparents had a farm, and those ducks attacked you. And they attack. Mean as a snake. Well, boy, when they get, especially rotten meat, they will follow you anywhere and just rub up against you. They love you. It's incredible. Go ahead.
Well, the question is, first of all, like my mother has a terrible bad eye. Left eye has got redly red inside. What do you suggest for that eye?
Putting some egg white in that eye.
Egg white. Because they
Your
said.
mother doesn't do anything I say. So
I know, I'm going to try, but she listened to the egg white. That's what I thought. Because they said it's a macular degeneration from her nerve. The eye doctor looked at it.
Well, your mother's not well. Your mother's not well at all. One of the meanest people I know.
Toxic. I mean, she's
Yeah,
toxic.
she's toxic from it. Yeah, so I don't know that anything's going to help her much. If you get her to put the egg white in her eyes, it will help.
Well, all right.
Yeah, and it'll feed the protein right to the cornea, so that she can maybe stabilize that deterioration.
Bloodshot all over. One other thing, one other thing I just want to mention. You do detox from your bone, right?
Oh,
I
yeah?
feel right here, the bone's already hurting here. So it means your feet can get wider from that denser, it gets wider.
Temporarily.
Does your
They
feet
can
get
swell temporarily.
but I mean, I'm talking about your width of your foot can expand. Can it get wider?
Yeah, it can.
I heard
I've got
somebody-
a triple D here.
And what were you
It doesn't look
before?
that big, but it is. It's a triple D.
What were you before?
I was a C.
So your foot on
When I was
the
a teenager, I was a C. Now I'm a triple D.
so your feet on the diet eventually will get wider.
Well, it depends. I don't wear a lot of shoes, so my foot is naturally allowed to spread and expand, and I kept it in shoes like most people do to try to prevent the expansion.
You have to go barefoot in order to expand.
Probably. Good question.
Yeah. And when I go out socially with people, I've been having salads with olive oil.
No wonder you have gas. Just remember, if you eat salads alkalinize the intestinal tract. The intestinal tract has to be acid to digest all the animal products. You're going to have lots of gas if you do that. If you eat a salad, it better be the last food of the day, so no meat catches up to it during the night, because you will have gas. That's why I suggest vegetable juice and not vegetables. You need to alkalinize the blood, not the intestines. And if we were well, we wouldn't even need vegetable juice. We would need that mineral supplement, the alkalinity, and all the vitamins and enzyme supplementation. All the other tribes that eat raw foods don't need that. They just eat the meat and the dairy and the blood. Simple. They don't ever eat vegetables. Well, I should say every once or twice a year.
So they get the calories in the blood.
And the meat's full of calcium. The vitamin C in meat is so high that it reverses severe scurvy in 3 days. Not even carrot juice or oranges can do that.
The building next door to me,
I would take off. Get out of town. Get out of Dodge. That's the odor that will make me crazy.
It is a poison.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's very poisonous. Heavy metal vapors involved in that. Oh, there was one other highly toxic person besides mechanics and road operators, and those are people who grew up under an airport. Under an airport.
You live near an airport?
I grew up under an airport, landing strip. Very toxic. If you have a question about that.
What about oils like flax and fish oil?
Okay, there are two different fields there. Flax oil is a 90% solvent reactant. That's why it's a good antioxidant. It helps break down toxic substances. It does not lubricate the body. It does not aid the body in stabilizing. It is mainly a solvent that will dissolve and detoxify toxic substances in the body. That's good unless you're as thin as you are, then you don't want to do it. No. You want to build and stabilize your system and get enough weight on that you can afford to do that. Because the byproducts from using a solvent like that will have a lot of waste products. And they'll just go into your tissues all over the place.
Why wouldn't it go out and
It has to get it into there without damaging the intestinal walls. And it can't do that unless it is stable. The body's stable with good raw fats, animal fats. It has to be protected first. It's like you going in and taking care of nuclear waste without a suit on. It's not a good idea.
So it's not good to take.
No. In fact, people who just come onto the diet, I say stay away from all kinds of pressed oils for a couple of years and you're very thin.
How about fish oil?
Fish oil is a different thing. That's an animal fat. It's wonderful. But anytime you buy fish oil that's been separated from the fish, you use a solvent to purify it, and that's like soaking your fish oil in kerosene. You have to use heat and or a solvent to purify it. Pardon? Same thing. It's all purified and clarified. And that's a solvent process. The only way you're going to get pure oils is from a fish.
What about taking vitamins?
Eating fish.
So you said that flax oil is okay people who are bigger?
Pardon?
Flax oil is recommended people who are large, who have, I don't know.
Yeah, people who are fat, they like me.
And the same thing with that flax oil.
Yeah. Like me.
You don't need flaxseed either?
Pardon?
You don't need, what about seeds? Glandular concentrate?
It's not a good idea. If you need something to help make you laxative, like the man who came here earlier. No. There was a man who came earlier who didn't even stay for anything other than just come and thank me. His wife had been on the diet for about 2 years. She was a person who couldn't even drink water. Started that night. Now she's gained about 30 pounds. She was skin and bones. She was going to die. Now she's fine. He thought it was a crazy diet, but he didn't have any other choice to watch you go through it. After you're on the diet, he started experimenting. Now he's come to me as a client, but he was doing these other things. I told him to diet, and he was doing his version of the diet because he knew better. So I just had a consultation with him last week, and I said, you don't do that. This is why you have to do this and do that. So he said, and he was giving me this resistance for about 15 minutes, and I just laid it out there. So this is the way to do it. Just do it. See what happens. So he came to tell me that all of his problems disappeared in just a few days. Doing exactly what I said.
The vitamin
But he's the one that has a lot of constipation problems. And I said, if you really want to have don't grind the flaxseed, all of that garbage, because it has phytic acid in it. It will prevent you from absorbing your B vitamins. You go toward depression, you have, anxiety attacks. If you do that with flax seeds. You want to take chia seeds, soak them in water for about 6 to 10 hours. They'll puff out with all this gelatin. Mix that with, a lubrication formula or some cream. If you want it to taste like a nice cereal, add cream and honey. So that's what he's been doing. He says he was great. It's like that.
I never heard of
I
that.
said, never chop your seeds into hard substances because it takes hours for it to soften. So it's going to go into your intestines and start slashing into. And then you're going to end up more constipated. If you want to take the flax seeds, they will also produce the same kind of mucus, like gelatin, but not like the chia seeds, and not as quick. Chia seeds is a very fine little seed that they feed birds, but you can find it in some health food stores. It's a very fine seed.
You have to get it organic.
No, because it doesn't absorb. None of that absorbs. It takes a very hardy bird gizzard to ingest it. To help people who don't have good peristalsis and they don't have good E. coli, to cause bowel movements. So it's just to help them move. Because some people who don't have the bacteria, the E. coli, to produce enough fecal matter, enough bacteria to discharge, the toxins will stay in, and if they're highly acrid, and they don't have enough mucus in that bowel because they've got too many colonics or enemas, then those substances, the toxic substances that are in the bowel, will irritate the intestinal walls and cause ulceration and even more constipation, and then they'll get headaches, all kinds of problems. It's mean and nasty, like the alligators in Texas that have no asshole. I don't know, somebody gets these jokes sometimes,
Did you say it takes 40 years for the bone to detox?
That's right, 40 years for the bone to detox 5 times.
So what I'm feeling
Maybe like
now,
5 times.
one thing is the toes by the toes. It is the bone, isn't it, right here?
So your body will go through different stages for 4 years. Okay.
Flaxseed.
Suzanne, do you have a question?
Yeah. Reverse osteoporosis. And one of the previous you made reference to a weight sickness with osteoporosis because the acidic nature reaches calcium in the bone. Correct. I think that was grapefruit.
No, grapefruit doesn't react as badly, and also pineapple actually helps mend the bones and reverse osteoporosis. The tangerine, the orange, the lemon, the lime will help deteriorate the bones.
Deteriorate bones?
Deteriorate bones.
Why? Orange, lemons, limes? You can't suck on a lemon or a lime, right?
I didn't make the world this way. Don't get upset with me.
You can't chew
I
on
just
lemon.
observe and tell you what it does.
So those recipes for chicken, where you put it in lemon, God, shouldn't have that?
No, that's fine because there's enough substances in there for the lemon to work on. It's not going to damage the mineral balance of it unless you have it too often.
What do you mean too often? You can't put too much.
If you have it every day, if you have lemon and chicken every day, you're going to have some mineral deficiency.
So you should eat chicken every day.
No, you should eat lemon and chicken together every day.
But if it's already soaked.
You shouldn't eat lemon every day. Nobody should eat lemon every day.
If it's soaking in the chicken already, let's say you made the chicken today, and you squeeze the lemon on it, and you have that chicken for 3 days.
I said every day. I didn't say for 3 days.
You eat it every day.
If you eat it every day for 3 days, it's not going to cause a mineral deficiency. If you ate it every day for 10 days, you better believe you're going to start having mineral deficiency.
So you shouldn't have chicken more than 3 times a week.
Unless it depends upon the individual. Depends upon the individual.
I better call you and ask you.
If your teeth and you start getting more sensitive, you've had too much lemon. Your gums start getting sensitive. Any part of your body starts getting sensitive, you've had too much citrus. Back off. The loop formula has such a small amount of it in the relationship with the fat. If you have, and that's why it usually doesn't work with it doesn't harm marinated fish because you have the fats to utilize the citric acid. In the process of utilizing fat as energy or as utilizing it as a solvent to dissolve toxins in the body uses 80% fats, 15% proteins, and 5% citric acid or alcohol that the body will make by fermenting carbohydrates in the system. So fats are usually accompanied by a lot of minerals. All fats have concentrated with minerals. Nothing to worry about. But if you use a lot, like some people use an awful lot of lemon juice to marinate their chicken, and they're drinking all of that lemon juice along with it, they're going to create an imbalance. Fat and mineral deficiency. You go in and start leaching it out of the body. Unless you're going to eat cheese with that meat, if you meal it, you grate some cheese and put that in the mixture, right before you eat it. There you'll provide a lot of minerals that will attach to the lemon juice or citrus juice, whatever it is.
Yeah, if I understand this correctly, the raw milk is the best substance for remineralizing the bone.
Correct. As long as you have extra cream.
With extra cream added.
Yes.
And that bone marrow is additionally beneficial to heal the bones. You can get preferably raw marrow.
Bone marrow will do it even faster than milk.
Even faster than milk.
Bone marrow is stem cells. It is all stem cells. That means the body can take a bone marrow cell and make a liver cell, a nerve cell, any cell in the body. It's a transmogrification. There's only one source we have here. We're very hard at getting it.
Right.
So we should all applaud her. We've got the sources for glands, good organic buffalo glands, and the bone marrow. If you didn't want any of those to help get well faster, take her number after this is all over and give her a call.
I want to order the bone marrow after, because you can't send it at the same time because they have to let the animal hang for 10 days.
Okay.
For 8 days.
I understand.
Okay.
So also at that time you mentioned about if you had ground up some small bones from chicken or certain ribs or something like that. But eating sardines, the raw sardines, with all the sardines, was a source of some.
Absolutely. Yeah. When I shot those gophers and my girlfriend ate all the guts, I ate the bones and the muscle. I put them in a blender with some milk and I blended the hell out of it. And I had lots of bones from that little creature, those two creatures.
And the tomatoes do not have the same acidic effect as the citrus.
Correct. It's a different acid. It can cause over-acidity in some people because if you've eaten a lot of tomato sauces, pizzas and, tomato soups and stuff like that, and you have a high deposit of those in the system, the raw tomatoes can help pull that garbage out. And that can cause an over-acidity, blisters on the tongue, the mouth. It can cause temporary geographical tongue.
But not a problem.
No.
So what's
What's
that?
the geographical tongue?
Oh, okay, it's straight down.
All of these fissures all over. It's called the geographical tongue.
Okay. And in a situation.
Mine's forever that way since they cut the vagus nerve and all the acid comes into my mouth.
And in a situation where a person literally cannot get raw milk, they're living somewhere where they just can't get raw milk. Right. You mentioned the carrot juice and avocado, preferably with raw butter and raw fat. I'm just concerned about family members who are in a situation where they literally cannot get raw milk that they can talk about. And it sounds like marrow, the food is animal that is combined with sort of
Also, oysters are very helpful. It's funny, oysters have the ability to take some of the most toxic substances and they build it into the shell without it getting into the body. I had one of the most toxic people that I'd ever seen. Grew up under an airport, and she was loaded with mineral poisoning. And I said, if you ate 3 dozen oysters a week, you could probably eliminate a lot, because she was going through fibromyalgia really bad. So she barely had enough energy to get out of bed every day. She ate 3 dozen a week for an entire year. She got rid of 1/3 of her mineral poisoning in 1 year. I've never seen anybody do that before. She was diligent about it.
Is that good for osteoporosis too?
Correct. There's something about the cell of an oyster that can take a mineral from any substance and make good of it. Happy hour?
There's a new restaurant.
An oyster bar?
There's a new restaurant right around the corner in Century City.
There are several there.
Where it's just open.
Jaime's, I used to go there sometimes. Jaime's on Pico Boulevard. And there are several right there. They're all grouped right there. And all 3 of them. I forgot the name of the others. Jaime's closed? Really?
I thought so.
Which one did you say in Century City?
What about Gulf Stream?
How do you know if they're
But
farm
here they
In the
open.
mall? Where they were?
How do you know if they're farm raised or
Gulf
naturally grown in the ocean?
All are farm raised. All oysters and clams are farm raised. However, all that means to an oyster and a clam is that they have a fence that blocks off a part of the ocean, and they're now allowed to claim that as their farm, so people can't trespass. The only thing that they do is not natural. Sometimes they'll take the offspring, separate it from the mother, and plant it in different areas, but they don't feed it garden.
They don't feed it garden.
It's only fed what's naturally in the ocean, because they found out that they screw up their reproductive. When they don't reproduce it, they feed them. So it's completely natural, except for the fence.
What do they eat? The oysters, basically, they eat plain.
Whatever's in the water, the ocean water.
Well, in that case, there's a place downtown called Dan's, and they have a really good oyster steak. You get like 3 dozen for $19.
Oh, wow.
In a big box.
Where's
It's called Dan's Seafood. You take the 10 freeway and get off at 8th Street.
But you have to open. You have to open
It's called
yourself.
Dan's
Dan's
Seafood.
Company in downtown LA.
Then you have to open them yourself.
They also have them in jars at a really reasonable price, like half of what they charge at Whole Foods or.
The jars are not that, that's good.
Well, the jars are glass, so that's fine, but still, it's always better to have a fresh oyster that you can still alive. Okay, did I catch everybody? We had a latecomer. Did you want to ask a question?
I was wondering maybe how spirulina might fit in with spirulina. But I thought it was good to alkalinize your body to get your, as a first line of defense, keep your body from getting sick.
Well, first of all, the algae is only edible as long as it's only digestible as long as it's still in the water and active in the water. Once it's dried, you will absorb less than probably 20% of it, and not well. Because again, it's a vegetable that's dehydrated.
I'm going to try to get the
So as long as if you take the algae, filter it, and then drink it right out of the water, it'll be active and good for you.
He told me that.
Still, you're not going to digest a lot of it because you're not a fish. It takes a fish system to break down that particular type of cellulose.
The guy is.
So if you take
There's
your...
no cellulose in the blue-green algae.
Oh, yes, there is.
That's different because, well, maybe I'm wrong.
They have to have a membrane.
So that's the animal cells have membranes. And the plants have cell wall. Blue-green algae is in the third kingdom. That's what makes the difference. And all the amino acids are edible life.
Okay, if you do an experiment, take your spirulina, measure how much you take, and then check your feces for 48 hours and measure how much it passed through you without digestion. When I did it, 98% passed through. The best for one particular animal was 20% absorption. And that's all. So again, to me, it's another hype food.
The guy at the blue-green algae told me to call him after the
Don't bring it up. Don't want to hear about that guy again. It's 2 years since food.
No, this is another person.
I don't want to hear about it. If it
Try
never
it.
arrives, it arrives.
Yeah.
Did you have a question on other? No? Okay, we got everybody.
Yeah.
What time is it?
I know what the
5:18.
Pardon? Pardon?
5:18.
Oh, we're 18 minutes over.
Oh my God.
Any questions?
Good.
Also, there's a bunch of places from 2 months ago that people left here.
And glass.
Oh, some of them had their eyeglasses.
Oh my God.
It's great.
Anybody recognize them yet?
That's nice.
Anybody else?